Hi. Today I would like to give a part two on the subject of the cases when ethics is disagreeing with halacha or halacha is disagreeing with ethics. And the last time we discussed actually the understanding that everything that is written in the Torah has to be ethical. And obviously, that on itself creates a problem because if ethical is something which is subjective to us humans, then it means that basically ethics could have been written by us humans, and that is what the philosophers calls autonomy versus heteronomy. Heteronomy means that Hashem is we need somebody else. We need a divine intervention to teach us what is good and what is bad. I will give probably a part three on that element because the big philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, who actually has written a lot on that issue, because as he was a religious Jew, he understood that just speaking about ethics from a philosophical perspective is not enough, because otherwise you indeed create an issue of understanding why do we need a Torah to teach us ethics, unless the Torah only gives us the elements of the rituals, how to, as he explained himself, how to entertain and actually work on the relationship that we have with Hashem. But in any case, what is interesting is that we have seen multiple cases where it is clear that the halacha has changed due to a change in ethical understanding of our society. We've been talking about the case in Rabbi Akiva, how he changed the problem of a woman not being allowed to wear beautiful clothes and to put on makeup when she is a niddah, and that this has been changed. But not only those Chazal give us these type of examples, there is even a case where in the Torah itself, so I'm talking about the Torah Shebechsav itself, changed due to societal changes, external factors that have changed the situation. I give an example. There is a matzevo. The matzevo, our forefathers, our always made in matzevo, and that was regarded as something beautiful. But since it has changed in society, when the Torah was given, it has become an element of Avodah Zorah. According to some Meforshim, Hashem hates it, and therefore we are not allowed to, and it's a lois aseh to make a matzevo. So you see here something very interesting, that something which was good became not good, and this is actually reflected in the Torah. So we see that the Torah is actually teaching us this evolution of that something can become bad, can be good, and then become bad according to the situation, the context. So something which was a mitzvah, something was beautiful in the beginning, can suddenly become horrible. So even in the Torah Shebechsav itself, we do see that there is a change. There is another element that I wanted to point out. There is a Gemara that the Gemara says in Makkos Daf Chov Dalet Omed Aleph, and the Gemara there explains of things that Moshe Rabbeinu gozar, but eventually the Nevi'im has changed. So the Gemara says, Omar Rabbi Yossi V'Chanine, Arba Gzeros gozar Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael, Bo Arba Nevi'im u'Bitlom. Now, this is a very interesting expression, Arba Gzeros gozar Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael, but I will not talk about it now. But Moshe Omar, he says one of the cases is Poiket avoin ovois al bonim, Bo Yecheskel ubitlo hanefesh achotas hi tomos. So this is a very good example of indeed something which was probably very well accepted at the time of Moshe, that children can suffer of the sins of their father. The element of what we call today collective punishment, it's because there are elements within my group that has made a sin, I have to be punished as well. That concept was probably very considered as ethical, as accepted in the society in which people were living, but Yecheskel was mevatelit, and hanefesh achotas hitomus. But what is more interesting is that what here the Gemara says is that not only do we behave like that, for us anyway, so always albonim, that even Moshe Rabbeinu gave us, and it's written even in the Torah, that we as a Bezdin cannot punish a child for his father's sins. That's clearly a loisase. But we're talking here not about us, but we're talking about Hashem. So the ethics that Hashem is following, which used to be poiket avoin ovois albonim, has changed into hanefesh achotas hitomus. And that's a very, very interesting Gemara, because here again you see the element of where ethics changes, but not only for us humans, but even for Hashem. Now, of course, Haggadahs, one can have to be very careful in the interpretation of Haggadahs. Maybe there are other ways to read that Gemara, but it's a very, very nice example of changes in ethics in the Halocho, but also how Hashem himself up in the heavens is dealing with the humans. There is another example in collective punishment that I would like to discuss here. The Iranidachas is a very good example of where when you look in the posuk of Iranidachas, everybody has to be killed, animals, but also children, women, and innocent people. Normally, that's how, when you read the text, that's how it is read. And Chazal have clearly changed and have said, no, only the people that have received Asor with to aid him, they are going to be killed. So basically, there is hardly any difference. There are differences only in whether the property of the Iranidachas is Osur or not. And this is what creates Iranidachas, just creates an element of money. The only difference is money, and in other words, is of monetary impact, halochos. But and of course the way that is being killed. Whilst normally Avodah Zorah is killer, in the Iranidachas it's saiv. But for the rest there is no difference. And that's also a very nice example of how Chazal has changed. I can give you multiple examples. Ein tachas ein, shen tachas shen. This is clearly also an example of a text that describes something that was quite harsh after a certain while, and Chazal Torah Shebal Peh has changed. There's another example how Arboim Yakenu, our Malchus is 40, but Chazal have reduced it to 39, and the Chazal in the Gemara even tells us to appreciate our Chazal. It's to come back to Levinas, where I discussed last week the technical part of how can we change the halachas. So I described it as being the Sanhedrin to change the halachas. But what Levinas is claiming, and that's something that I need to investigate a little bit more, he claims that this is the whole concept of Torah Shebal Peh. So the Torah Shebal Peh is not just a technical and how do you call it, enabler of defining what exactly the Torah wants, but it's actually, he calls it basically the guardians of to keep the Torah relevant today. Now, there was a Torah Shebal Peh, the job of Torah Shebal Peh, and why it was started after the Chorban Bayis Rishon, as the Sfas Emes explains. This is only after the Chorban Bayis Rishon that the Torah Shebal Peh, the Derech Chodosh that the Sfas Emes explains, this is only started at the end, the beginning of the time when the Nevius stopped and the Chachom took over, was to make sure that the ethics is an ethics that is humanistic. The ethics is not a divine ethics, but a humanistic ethics. And that is the role of the Torah Shebal Peh. Now, there are, of course, discussions on the discussion of last week. Is it an ethics for humanity, or is it an individual ethics that is important? And that's a debate. And I believe that this is a very interesting debate. Personally, I believe that that in there is a posuk which I would like to mention, which is in Shoftim, where it says, "Bayomim Mohem ein melech beYisrael ish hayoshor be'einov yaseh." So basically, this posuk is saying that there was no king, and so everybody did his own what he thought was yoshor. Now, this is an expression which normally people are translating as something negative. Ish hayosher be'enov yalse is something which is negative, but it's not necessarily like that. And I invite the listeners to actually go and check it up. The Sefer Hayosher is actually called Sefer Hayosher, which is something positive, is to reflect on the Ish Hayosher be'enov yaseh. It is positive. It's a compliment that was given. And basically, I believe, and this is my chiddush I would like to give today, is that the beginning Ish Hayosher be'enov yaseh, but when a king comes then suddenly it is the government that decides what is the Yosher in humanity. So there is this individual Hayosher was before kingdom. After kingdom, then it is a government, it is an institution that will decide what is Yosher and what is not Yosher, what is not ethics. There is something that we can maybe understand a very interesting Tosefta. And it's really kedai to check it up. The Tosefta is in Shkolim, Perek Beis, and it's Mishnah or Halocho Gimel and Dalet. I'm leaving you the context in which it was written. So it says, "V'osisu hayosher v'atov be'enei Hashem." So the pasuk says that "V'osisu hayosher v'atov be'enei Hashem manitav locho." So he says, Hashem. And that's a very interesting concept. So normally you have Hatov Hayosher be'enov, Ish Hayosher be'enov, versus Ish Hayosher ve'atov be'enei Hashem. And so here you can indeed claim that if the one is negative, that means that people believe that they know themselves what is good and what is bad, versus it has to be in the Einei Hashem. And there is a machlokes, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, and again here we have Rabbi Akiva, and so Osiso Hayosher Vatov says the Tosefta, Osiso Hayosher Vatov be'Einei Hashem, Hatov be'Einei Shomayim, v'Hayosher be'Einei Odom. Divri Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel Oimer, af hayosher be'enei shomayim. And here again we see, and it's a very interesting machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. And how we described it just now, we could say that this is exactly the discussion that we have. Is the Yashrus, is it something that we humans can feel, that we know ethically what is good and what is bad, or do we have to suppress our own ethical responsibilities towards the divine and the what we call the heterogeneous ethics that has been received from Hashem? And so we have to, like we always were taught, you have to suppress your own feelings of what is good and what is bad, and be submissive towards the definition and the appreciation of Hashem of what is good and what is bad. But there, Rabbi Akiva says no. He says that he has to be Yosher be'enei Odom. This is what Rabbi Akiva says. Rabbi Shmuel says no. That even the Yosher has to be only be'enei Shomayim. And I've seen that people are using that to actually describe the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Shmuel. Is ethics something which is purely divine and we should completely not think about our own ethical feelings, or is it something that we actually can believe in, that we have to make sure that the halacha should fit our own ethics? So yes, the question of the individual ethics versus the collective viewed ethics, that's a very interesting, very interesting debate, which Levinas is speaking about. He doesn't believe that a person has to follow his own ethics, and so basically it is not only the Chazal that can describe the ethics, but it is on each individual to do it. But I guess that the problem here lies is, as Rabbi Yochanan Wasserman explains, the problem sometimes is that we are, due to our desires and our bad inclination, can be sometimes clouded in our view. We can be biased in our understanding, and we are convinced that we're allowed to do this because it's the ethical thing to do, or we are not going to do something that we have to do because it's the ethical thing to do. It's simply because we believe that we are ethical, that it is pure, but this purity is, of course, biased and clouded by our own desires and our the Yetzer Hara, or maybe some unclarity that we have developed over the years, or simply because we are not smart enough to really assess a situation as it should be. And our Chazal, they can teach us the rules, and they can teach us how the things have to be done and what is really ethical and what not. But it's only as a tool to teach me what is taka ethical, but I have to do it because I believe that it is good, or I believe that it is the best way to do it. There is also, I remember once I explained more or less the same way is in the im ein ani li mili uchshani la'atzmi moani ve'im lo yachshav ve'imosai. In other words, there is here a whole element. What happens if I still don't understand why I have to do this? For me, this does not make sense. If that's the case, is there a reason not to do it? And then the Chazal tell us, that was a mission in Pirkei Avos, that Hillel says that im lo yachshav ve'imosai, that by definition you have to do it anyway, even if it does not fit with your viewpoint. If unless you have a clearly an issue, then you have to indeed discuss that. But as long as you don't have a clear issue, then of course im lo yachshav actually is eimosai. If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Because you might never have the opportunity to come to that understanding of the halacha. So basically, in short, we have seen the Gemara in Makkos. There is a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara actually describes the Taryag mitzvahs and says that David HaMelech reduced it on 11 pillars. And these 11 pillars are, all of them are ethics. So it's very interesting that David HaMelech saw the Torah, the whole Taryag mitzvahs, as only ethical issues. He brings down, the Gemara says, Bo David והעמידון הלך על ססרי. כדכתיב מזמור לדוד מיוג בהולך ומשכון באח קודשךו, הוילך תומים ופועל צדק ודוימר אמס בלבובו, להרוג על לשון, לא זו לרעהו, וכך פלונוס על קרוי ונבזה בין ובנימוס, ירא השם יכבד, נשבע לו רע ולא יום, ירכס פלונוס על בדשו, שך אדונו כי לא כך, אוי שאלה לא ימד לו אילום. So he brings down 99%, 90% of the cases are ethical issues. Also, that says that dibros are only ethics. I'm not going to go in where are the Tometahara, where are the Kotshim, where are the Isur Achiles, the Gilui Aroyos, etc. Where are those in the list of David HaMelech? They are missing from the list, and this I already spoke, because they are not related to the Tikkun Olam, but they are more related to the Yom HaShmini. They are related to prepare ourselves for the time when the Kedusha will come down, where Hashem wants to live between us. And so we are doing little things to keep that Tomet Tahara, that keeps Kedusha, in order to enable Hashem to come and live on this world. So they have nothing to do with the current Tikkun Olam, but there are more ways to prepare ourselves for the world to come. And I spoke about that, and maybe in the next video I will elaborate a little bit more on that. And also the rituals have also to be understood. Why is Moed Ani saying Moed Ani? Why is washing Negelwasser helping the world to become more ethical and to be metuken? That's something that that I will discuss maybe in the next video. I wish you a great day. May you be zeicher to the Gula Shleimo b'meir of Yomeinu. Amen.